Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for joining us for Hudson County Review Live. I am your host, the man of the hour, too sweet to be sour, John R. Hydus, and I am joined today with Jersey City Ward B Councilman Chris Gadsden. Chris, thanks so much for joining us today.
No, thank you for the invite, man. Appreciate it.
No problem. So, Chris, let's go back to 2013. Obviously, you ran for the Ward B Council seat. Things didn't work out the way you planned. But then, all of a sudden, there's a special election when the incumbent obviously ran into some legal problems, had to step down. And it's a presidential election. A lot of people aren't paying attention to the municipal politics, but lo and behold, you managed to pull off the upset. Just tell us a little bit about your mindset between 2013 to 2016 and what you're thinking about on the weeks leading up to that election.
Well, in 2013, of course, I ran with Jerry Walker and the team, and we had an excellent ticket. We had a bunch of advocates, just a group of people who were so dedicated to doing a lot of work in Jersey City. And so, 2013 was my debut. It was somewhat to say, hello, community. The educator, the man who's concerned about the community wants to engage you into in a conversation. So even though I was not successful in the vote count, I felt as though I was successful in reaching out to residents and constituents who I never, came into contact with because, I'm in a silo. I'm an educator, so most of my life is devoted to kids and families during the school day. But on the campaign in 2013, I really got a sense of what goes on inside of the ward and what's taking place inside of Jersey City. So even though I wasn't successful in the electorate, it was more so successful in meeting and reaching out to people. And so that leads up into last year in 2013, once Chico, 2016, Chico got into a little trouble. And I had told Chico prior to that, I said, listen, if you are as successful as you started being accountable to residents, I said, you'll never see me on a ballot in Ward B because you're doing your job and you're doing it very well. But what happened in May of 2016, the opportunity presented itself. I submitted a resume, and I guess I didn't get the nod. John Hallinan did. And I had told John also, I said, if you do what you need to do over the next couple of, I said, I won't touch a ballot. But then I just saw that we needed some more outreach, needed to do some more things within the ward. And so I just took a shot at it. I took a shot at it. And we worked. We worked very hard. In September and October of that year, engaging residents door to door, old-fashioned politicking. And we were pretty much successful. I was pretty much successful in that, I didn't have a lot inside of the budget. I went against, the party, and I didn't have the resources of committee people and everyone else backing me. So it was basically just go out there and get votes.
So with that said, did the end result surprise you at all?
It surprised me. I thought it would be a lot closer. It surprised me that it was overwhelming. That's the shock of it. 400 additional more people actually voted for me than an incumbent that time. So I was like, oh, this is crazy. I was just thrown back, and I was thrown back not because I didn't think that I would. I didn't think that I wouldn't win.
I just thought it would be a nail biter. Maybe
I thought it would be a nail biter,
that
type of stuff, because it's hard going up against somebody who's already inside of office. So
sure.
So that was pretty much surprise, whatever, to me. But this is something that I always wanted to do. So you put yourself in a position, you say that you're going to go out there and do it, and then you do it. You speak it into existence, and things happen. That's a hallmark of my life. My life is a testament of working hard, making sure that hard work is going to pay off. It's paid off in just my personal life, with my kids, my wife, paid off in education, just inspiring and helping kids. Now it's paying off in me just being a servant to the community. So everything that we should endeavor to do, we should expect a level of success and greatness to come forward from it. So that's why, even though I was like, whoa, like I'm finally here, you know. I'm just so happy that I can engage and do this work, you know. So.
Very good. I know a lot of Ward B constituents appreciate your activity on Facebook, and you know they have an easy time getting in touch with you. And I mean that seems to be a hallmark of the Ward B council representative in recent memory. So I think that's a little interesting. But onto a different note. A lot of people were wondering what you were going to do this election season. Obviously, that was a special election, so now you got to defend the seat already. I'm sure it feels like yesterday, but you know, here you are, another election. There was some talk you were going to run with Mayor Fulham, some talk of running as an independent, and eventually you ended up going with mayoral challenger Bill Matsikoudis. So, the first question I have is: did the mayor or anyone from his camp approach you about running on his team?
I had meetings, you know, with the mayor in in April and in May, and we had talks about me running on the ticket, and so that's why, you know, people, you know, I heard articles, people talking about Chris is indecisive and things like that, but you got to understand and know that I was never in this situation before. Like everything that I'm doing right now is relatively new in the grand scheme of things, because when you look at Ward B basically leadership comes from almost like a vacuum. The vacuum is, you know, the day camp, anything coming out, whatever, from that west side. And if you notice, the trend was and is that all council people come from that same cloth, and I'm not from that cloth. And so when I'm elected, I have to find new inroads, and I still have to have those relationships, but it was just different. And so now when I'm trying to figure out like what I'm going to do for 2017, I'm kind of like searching it out, because I got into office one way. I got into office on an independent streak where people just went out to the booth with just a notion that I'm supporting Chris. He's going to put us first, and we want that type of representation inside of City Hall. So I'm saying to myself, well, how do I still keep that same genuine approach to leadership without having people feel as though I'm compromising anything, right? So, and I had told all the leaders inside of the ward, and even the mayor, I said, listen, what you would have to do with me is that, being that I'm not from the crew, so to speak, I have to be engaged. I have to be inside of the mix, because right now I'm seen as somewhat of an outsider. You understand? So I wanted to be more so involved. I wanted to sit on boards and you know, commissions and committees. I wanted to be involved in the decision making of like committee people and things of that nature. And so I want to be entrenched and entrenched inside of the work that's going on inside of the ward. And so, and those meetings leading up, whatever, with the mayor, like there were votes that I had that weren't too mayor friendly, right? So
sure.
Whether it be Tech City, whether it be 25, you know, Columbus, whether it be, you know, the selection of Mike Griffin during that time. So there was a lot of things that I made decisions on that the mayor necessarily didn't like. And so the purpose of meeting with him was to basically say, well, you know, you know, when I make decisions, you're not too fond of them, you know, and sometimes, you know, with the mayor, sometimes when you don't agree, whatever, with what the agenda or whatever is, or, you know, he just doesn't talk to you. So after Tech City, you know, the conversations kind of like ceased a little bit, and then we actually met to talk about me running on the ticket. So it was kind of weird for me to be in that type of position, because, you know, you're upset with me on a decision, but then now we're going to meet and talk about ticket. Now with me, I value just relationship. Like I value just like this politic thing is new, right? So when I'm sitting across from you, we have dialogue and discussion and conversation, then we make a decision based on that, like my wife or just people who I work with. Like, it's that connection. And so I said, well, every time I make a decision, Mayor, like, you get mad. So what if something happens in August and I say something off the cuff, and then all of a sudden, whatever, am I off the ticket? Like, what happens? Because I'm still going to be me. Like,
what kind of answer did you get there?
Well, like I was, Chris, you can be you. You can still be you. But I didn't feel comfortable, whatever, and
So you didn't like the vibe you were getting?
well, yeah, and sometimes you got to be comfortable. Now, I tell everybody this all the time. I'm not attacking the mayor. I ain't attacking none of that stuff. But I just got to feel like everything has to feel right. And if it doesn't feel right, then you don't go with it. Like, you always got to go with that gut, and you always got to go with just what you know and what you see. Mm-hmm. Because that matters. Like, whatever people's first impressions are, like, that matters. And me, I'm not the warm and fuzzy type. Whatever. I'm not the type of person that'll be up there, but like, hey, you guys, like, all that stuff. So I'm not personable like that, but I'm approachable in the sense that I listen, I'm open, I always keep an open mind and things like that. So I didn't feel comfortable, whatever, in that. Now, folks around me, they were like, well, Chris, your job is to make sure that you keep the seat. Your job is to make sure that you actually win. Now, me, I'm not there yet where I could say, well, let me compromise my feelings and my guts so that I can inspire whatever to higher office. I'd rather stay as authentic as I can be, and then if that happens, that's just a byproduct of who I am. You understand what I'm saying? So like,
Absolutely.
I can't be in that position like that.
So you make the decision you're not going to run with the mayor.
Yeah.
So obviously then you're down to, do I go as an independent or do I go with Bill? I mean, I guess at the time Charles Maynard was running for mayor too, but I don't know if he ever approached you.
Yeah. I had discussions with Charles too. I had discussions with everyone.
So how did you come to the conclusion of Bill?
I came to the conclusion with Bill because I still was going to, go independent, but there's a lot of people who helped me in 16 that were inside of the camp, inside of Bill's camp. And once again, relationship matters. And so, I was just filling out like a nest, because by May, I saw how people were moving. I saw that because I made the decision not to run with the mayor, I heard conversations of people running, people getting petitions and things like that. So I said, like, listen, this thing is heating up a little bit. So I have to make a decision, because in this mayoral race, you got the gubernatorial, you have all the state, whatever races, you got county races, you got board races, you got all these races taking place in November.
Potential for a high turnout.
You got a potential for a high turnout. And so the question I said to myself, well, do I, and the troops, whatever that was running with me, the band of misfits, I said, listen, I said, do you really think whatever, we can actually fight this battle again with the dynamics being totally different? Like, and especially inside of B, where you have a freeholder who's very active, who's very, he's a giant, he does a lot, whatever, and then you have him supporting the mayor, and then all the rest of those alliances and things like that. So it was just like me already feeling like I'm ostracized. So I just was like, I got to join the camp. And in joining the camp, I was like, well, Bill, if you're open, whatever, to creating a platform, whereas, we can talk about how we're going to move Jersey City forward, I wouldn't have no problem, whatever, with being on a ticket, because then I saw some of the people that he started to have on the ticket. And it's the same type of conversation I had with Charles also. I wanted to see who he was going to rock with, because once again, like, we have to be out there and campaigning and talking, and I got to feel comfortable with the people. So when I saw Esther Whitner as a at-large, just different people on the ticket, and people who I worked with before, I said, this may work.
You thought those were good community-oriented people?
A good community-oriented people who's done a lot, and people who I worked with, whatever, in prior. So that nest are comfortable. Now, that's not saying whatever that the nest, whatever that Fulop has, whatever. Like, I don't feel comfortable. I don't have good relationships with those folks. I just feel as though, like, me as an independent-minded person, lending ideas to craft an agenda during this election cycle, that exchange of ideas can help move Jersey City forward. Because after the election, you still got to take all the suggestions and all the promises that were made, and you still have to make sure that they are legislated, that they come into fruition. So being on the team, whatever way we can present that conversation, that's how I'm looking at it. Now, folks are looking at it as hotly contested political battle and everybody going back and forth and all the rest of that crap.
That's why people tune in.
And that's why people tune in, right? But really, like, as residents, as people who are civic minded, like, this process is just an exchange of ideas that's basically will set forward what's going to take place in Jersey City over the next couple of years. That's hugely important, because for me, when I came onto the council, I see how 3.5 years of agenda, and I see how and who it's benefiting, right? So now we got to craft a new agenda that takes the needs and concerns of people who feel alienated and put that at the table too. So that's the mindset I come into the council with, and that's the mindset that I feel as though needs like more of a voice is needed, whatever, like inside of this process. So that's why I'm running with Team Matsikoudis, because we're going to build something and everything else like that. Now, to everybody else who feels as though, like, well, Chris, this is political death and all the rest of this stuff, I don't look at politics that way. I look at it as hopefully one day people would start becoming more educated, more concerned about the political, social, and economic things, and they would basically start educating themselves about what the community needs and start pushing candidates that actually back those views. And I'm hoping that in November, people can see that my sense of advocacy, my sense of concern is something that they would want for the next 4 years in City Hall, along with helping lend support, whatever, to Bill, and helping push the narrative and push that conversation a little forward, and maybe that will help him be victorious in November.
Gotcha. Now, obviously, I'm sure you saw my previous guest, Bruce Alston, and something that he wrote about a week ago was that you and Bill actually had a little bit of friction, because you said you were going to support Councilman Rich Baggiano and Michael Young. Obviously, They're not running on the Matsikoudis ticket, but what's your take on that perspective?
Well, perspective is like this: when I came onto the council, Mike and Rich are like trapped on a deserted island, and then I come with a raft, and we embrace, like, oh, finally,
like Castaway.
Other folks, whatever, who think, oh, this is great, right? So I'm like, well, listen, if the council had more so folks, who just ask more questions and think a little bit more independently, then it'd be a better council. Because to Steve's credit, he basically came into office in 2013 with a majority, with a council, like a majority on council, and that's real easy, to push forth anything. And that's why a lot of times we sitting on council, the vote is 6-3, 6 this, that, 30, 7-2, and everything else, because it just basically just goes through. Now, not saying that a lot of legislation that we pass, is not benefited or necessary, but it's just that extra question, just that extra level of scrutiny, that's needed on the council. So when Young and myself and Rich and, back in December, we was talking about, an independent slate, but, an independent slate needs somebody to head it. So it's real tough, because then we'll still be battling and fighting still within our wards. All right. So, but we did agree. So basically, with signage, and we started doing things, and I did a lot of this stuff before I decided to run with Bill. And the conversation that I had with Bill, and I told him, I said, listen, we've been doing a lot of work. Even people, who are actually on the ticket, we were in those meetings in Mike's office, and everyone knew of it and everything, so it wasn't no big thing. So when Bruce talks about me and Bill not having a conversation, that's the first conversation that you got to have when you're sitting down, because I'm very open. And I told Bill, I said, listen, I don't want to be a distraction, on the team. I don't want to be that naysayer, that person or whatever who's trying to cause division. And I said, if you see whatever in what signs and things like that look very similar to Mike and Rich, then I'd rather explain that whatever the folks, and I'd rather you explain it, and so that we can just clear that, because I'm not going against anybody else, because when you really think about it, everybody on the ticket has to fight like crazy inside of the ward, and we all have to bring a little something whatever to Bill to make sure whatever that Bill gets something whatever like he gets an extra boost, because Bill's not in a position like Mayor Fulop is. Mayor Fulop is already the mayor, and so he can basically whatever go around the city because he already is boss, right?
The champion.
He's a champion. If you will. He has an advantage. So all of us inside of our individual wards got to fight whatever to add more meaning and depth and credibility whatever to Bill also. So we all kind of like in this together. And I told him, I said, listen, when you see that, I don't want to cause any division, anything else like that. And matter of fact, when Terrence, I said, now listen, I said, now when you announce whatever that I'm running, whatever on your ticket, I said, people know whatever that I've been with Mike and Rich and everything else like that, and I basically support the fact that they need to be back on council, whatever, also because of the fight, So I said, it's no disrespect, whatever, to Carmen. I hope she works like crazy and do what she has to do, and no disrespect, whatever, to Janet, who may be on the ticket, and so like. There's no disrespect to them, but those individuals I work with closely, so that's how that thing went. And so he was very understanding of that, and that's the reason why I'm here. That's the reason why I'm on the squad, and that's why we're going to build an agenda, talk to the public about it over the next couple of weeks and months, and see if the public believes in it.
Sure. Now, obviously, you got your ear to the ground. I mean, you talk to a lot of constituents, and again, you're pretty active on social media, so you know that there's quite a few folks that believe the mayor's race is all but over. A lot of people are picking Fulop in a landslide.
Well,
so, how do you envision Bill pulling off the upset here?
Bill can pull up an upset if he speaks to the voters and he talks about where Jersey City needs to go. If that conversation is had and people believe in it, and because that's one thing that Fulop did very well in 2013. He basically told Jersey City, after 8 years of Healy, here's what's next. And you got to paint that narrative. If you don't write that narrative and paint a picture for people to see it, people are just going to be like, well, I don't see anything. Like, I don't see where I'm going, right? All I see is that whatever you can critique and you can talk about the failures and the things whatever that are harming whatever the city, and there are some things whatever that are harming our city policy wise and things like that needs to be addressed so that everybody can benefit off the growth in Jersey City. But if we continue to stay in that lane and we don't know and we don't push that like where we're going, then that's why he's not going to be successful. But if we go out there hard and talk about what can happen, we've seen in national politics people didn't expect Trump to win, but we have him. Why? We have him because he was able to connect with large groups of people and speak to their values and speak to their concerns, and they came out into the polls while another candidate, Hillary Clinton, couldn't inspire and did not make people whatever come out there and vote. Now, even though she got 3 million whatever more votes whatever than Trump, where it counted in the electoral, he was very calculated, he was very deliberate in what he did and strategized, and he was successful at it. So, and then if you don't think that somebody can pull up an upset, then all you gotta do is look at November 16, where people just said, he don't have a shot. Oh no, that gonna happen. No. What happens is when people are engaged, then things can happen. I saw something back in I guess June during the primaries inside of Jersey City, because I was endorsing at that time Jim Johnson. Yes. And the endorsement of Jim Johnson, when I saw something in Jersey City, is that Jersey City is a little bit more independent than people think. Like in this ward that we're in right now, Ward E, Jim Johnson actually wins 5 districts from Murphy, and with 5 additional districts with he lost by 5 votes. And so it's like folks, when they're engaged with issues, they understand what somebody's platform is, they understand where people are going, they can vote off the line. They can step out of themselves for a minute and say, you know, I think that he can or she can be successful, you know, especially in these council races. Like, folks will probably have their mindset on a mayor, but then they'll step back and say, well, who do I think is going to best represent my ward? You know, so it's nothing is ever impossible. We just have to just tell the public where we're going over the next 4 years. And I think that can be done over the next couple of weeks.
All right. Appreciate the insight. Now, back to Ward B. So, just a month ago, it seemed like, hypothetically, you were going to just walk back in. Of course, things rarely go that way.
Yeah,
Hudson County and Jersey City.
Yeah,
now, all of a sudden...
Because I didn't run.
Now, all of a sudden, that's fine. You have several challengers. The mayor has supported a candidate. Mara, someone you know. Jessica Hellinger, someone you know.
Yeah.
And I'm also Arthur Williams. I mean, all people you're acquainted with, of course. But, what's your take? I mean, all of a sudden, it's becoming a very crowded race when, it looked like it was not going to be one at one point.
Yeah, I mean, that's how, that's the nature of democracy. Like, people have a right to run. All individuals I'm cool with. Other individuals who I don't know why they're running, but they run because they have a right to. I've voiced.
I don't suppose you name names.
Yeah, well, I'm not naming names, but it is what it is. It's political season right now. After everything is all done in November, I guess olive branches and everybody will hug and all the rest of that, because I don't hold grudges. But that's just the nature of the game. Like, you always question, like, why somebody's running. I think this time, though, strategically, in order to get me out, you got to do a couple of things. One thing you got to do is you got to engage, like that. You got to take away the base, whatever that brought me in. So you run candidates, whatever that can actually steal a little something away from me. You can run candidates that actually will highlight the deficits that I had back in November, and then you can just run additional, and then people will come in as opportunists and come in and think they have a shot and everything else, because this is democracy. I did it back in 2013. Everybody has a right to do it. So when you're thinking strategically, especially with somebody like me who's outside of the scope, see, if I stayed inside and I ran, and everybody, you wouldn't hear about too many people whatever running, but being that I'm being all difficult and stubborn and everything else like that, then now everybody's going to come and throw the kitchen sink and the knives and everything else. I'm going to get stabbed in the back and all the rest of it. And I'm going to really face the political whirlwind that we now have in Jersey City, Hudson County. So
yes.
I brought it on myself, right? So
right.
It is what it is, but it's going to be fun,
Sure, I'm already having fun. I think you are too. So now, I think perhaps a parting point. Just tell me something that you're really proud of, what you've been able to do in Ward B, and something that, looking ahead, you'd really like to bring to Ward B before your term is up.
What term is up within January? Mm-hmm. Because I hope to be here for.
Well, obviously you want to be back, but I'm saying worst case scenario.
I think one of the things that I've done, well, some of the things that I've done in the last 9 months, that I'm really, as I would say, proud of. 'Cause, I'm not.
You don't like to toot your own horn.
And yeah, I'm not arrogant, or it's tough for me, whatever, to sell myself. But I think just being open. I think just hearing concerns. I think just meeting needs. I think just having just those partnerships with the different community people, whether it be police, whether it be public safety, whether it be the DPW, getting those quality of life issues done. My voice, sense of advocacy on the council. I think over the next 4 years, I would really like to push legislation and an agenda that's going to really benefit people on the south side of the city. I think there's so much work, whatever, that we have to do, that just being there just for a couple of weeks and months, it's not going to cut it. I think that, my work, whatever, with different civic groups. I'm a member of the NAACP, sitting with Pastor Keaton and Camacho and just different civic leaders, like getting this work done. I look forward to working with Jersey City together, making sure people are accountable and this, that. Like, there's so much I can do that I didn't even scratch the surface yet. Like, right now I'm just being accountable, and people love it. Like, people love that I'm out there. People love that I'm working, like, on the ground. That there's so much stuff that we got to do legislatively that's going to help out, our people, past Montgomery. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm very...
Actually, on that point, that reminds me, the project labor agreement up for vote again next week. Well, the second reading anyway. So could you tell me your thoughts on that, or where you think that's going to go?
Well,
and your just whole take on that contentious issue.
There's a couple of things that have to be in it, because the past project labor agreements are non-enforceable. No one is winning in Jersey City. I mean, that's how I look at it. Like, when they first had the conversation in March, they were like, this is a collaborative effort between the city, the unions, and the developers. We're going to hold folks accountable and things of that nature. Now,
sounded good on paper.
Well, it's always good on paper. But then when you look at just how project labor agreements are enforced, like, no one's in compliance, no one hits targets, no people of color and businesses are contracting and working in Jersey City. It has not happened, since people have gotten abatements, and these paperless, meaningless documents are attached to every abatement, right? So now we have the opportunity to put some strength into it, whereas people get fined. We use the money to you create a pipeline of labor that's sorely needed inside of Jersey City. Now, if we're going to just play with the piece of paper and not hold people accountable to it, then once again, all we're doing is just for the sake of justifying the abatements that we give out. We're going to, because that's the conversation going to be like, moving forward, we got to put something into play, because right now we don't have anything. The court struck down this. Please, let's hurry up, let's rush. But no, how about when that person reports that month that they didn't have the adequate labor, that they have to go out there and remedy that. Like, they have to hit those targets, and if they don't hit those targets, give me the money. Pierre, get the money, put the money inside of the pot, do real job training, get people prepared for what's taking place. Now, right now we're just having a discussion on construction right now. Because right now we have a situation where every last project that's built over $25 million, the union gets first dab at it, and Jersey City residents, normally don't get it. This PLA just benefits everybody else who's at the table already. And all I'm saying, all different people in the community is saying that historically speaking, people of color, minority contractors, businesses, and Jersey City residents need to benefit from all of this that's taking place. My only concern is that with all the development that's taking place, like now, the boom already happened, so now we're going to have sporadic whatever projects go up, and people, whatever should have been benefiting back in 2008, but now being everything is going to be slower and everything else, that that's not coming into fruition. So so that's my concern with it. And people of color, businesses, and residents of Jersey City are not benefiting from the current drafting of the PLA, and it's my hope that all the recommendations that were made over the last couple of weeks, that at our caucus meeting on Monday, like, we actually see them, because if those things are not inside of the financial agreements then once again, it's going to be 6-3, blah, blah, blah. The people are like, how come you didn't vote on it? Because it does not protect Jersey City residents. It only protects unions and developers and everyone else who comes to Jersey City, who get rich, get a little something for their money.
Gotcha. Councilman Chris Gadsden. Chris, we wish you the best of luck. Thank you for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, I also want to give a shout out to Mark Bucinich of Bus Reports, our technical genius behind the scenes. Next week, we will sink our teeth into the Hoboken mayoral race. We'll have freeholder Anthony Romano on. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Have a fantastic weekend.